Lepore, I have another question I want to pose to you.
All right.
And this has to do with obviously the crazy, improbable run that we've seen the Habs go on. And you start to look back in history and, maybe more recent history going back to, let's say, the year 2000. So over the last 20 plus years, this run that the Montreal Canadiens are on, is this the most improbable run we have ever seen in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Wow. That's a question. Wow. I mean, the simple answer you could say would be yes, because based on the format, we've never had. Oh, I guess no, based on conferences, it could happen, but I'd like to look up. I mean, I'd bet the 18th best team in the league has never been in the Stanley Cup final. But I look at the ones in recent past. Okay, let's do it. Like, funny, there was Canadian teams. I mean, there was Calgary, there was Edmonton. I'm trying to think of other improbable ones. Like, people would point to the Kings, but I mean, that one drives me nuts because like that was not an 8th seed, and they added a lot towards the end of the year with Richards and Carter. Other ones, I'm trying to think. The Ducks.
So then you even got the Dallas
pretty
Stars from last season.
Good one. Yeah, they were a lower seed. Yeah.
Even going back to you talked about the Flames in 04, the Oilers in 06, even going a year before that, the Anaheim Ducks, the J.S. Jaguar season in 2003.
Yeah, that one was pretty bananas. But I think the Flames were like 5th in the conference, like 5th in like a good Western Conference.
They were the 6th seed in the West, Lepore. They had a plus 24 goal differential. Okay. And they had the 12th best record in the NHL.
12th best?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's something. Yeah, I think that the Ducks jump out to me, like Jaguar standing on his head, like because that team was because I remember them beating Detroit. Were they they were in an 8 seed? Were they?
They were the 7th seed in the West.
But
yeah, I believe they didn't they play Detroit in the Cup final, or am I? No, that is
no. They lost to Jersey. That's in the West.
Yes,
yeah,
that was Jersey. Exactly.
Game 7. It was Game 7 too.
So it was Detroit that they played in the first round.
Yeah, that was the big upset.
I'm checking.
It always seems to be. That's how you remember them. It's like who upset Detroit, because Detroit was always at the top.
Yeah, so they swept the Red Wings in the first round, beat the Dallas Stars in the second round in 6 games, swept Minnesota in the conference finals, and then lost in 7 games to the New Jersey Devils in the Stanley Cup final.
There you go. Yeah, I wish I had like a hot answer for like, no, this one or that one, or yes, it is the Habs. But you know what? I'll say the Habs. I will say it. We have the 18th ranked team in the National Hockey League. We have a team that had a negative goal differential in the regular season. We have a team that, like, let's face it, like even Price didn't have a good year. Like we thought he might be an X factor in the playoffs only because of confirmation bias on what we saw in previous playoffs. But if we were basing it on his regular season, we wouldn't have thought that goaltending was going to be Montreal's get out of jail card when it came to teams that finished ahead of them. You had a team that was like inserting a bunch of kids to try to like get some firepower. They did have some players that like were kind of beaten up during the year. Yeah, like if the Habs aren't 1, like they're 1B, like on that list, like let's face it. And they did beat, really. I mean, maybe because we're not as surprised as Leafs fans. Like we look back at those old series or older series and say, wow, that team knocked out like the 2nd seed Red Wings, or they knocked out whatever team was at the top. Montreal beat Toronto. Like Toronto was what, 5th, 4th, or 5th in the league?
Yeah,
in the
terms of their old, I think the Leafs I think maybe finished 6th in points percentage.
Okay.
In the regular season, and they were a top 7 team.
Sure, and the gap was record. With like 3 games to go, they were like in the talk for the President's Trophy. So Montreal beat one of the top teams in the league, and then they did it again in the conference final. Like I'd like to see, like, you know how Money Puck does that like pie every day on like odds to win the Stanley Cup. Like even during the regular season, they do it for like chances to like make the playoffs and all that. I'd like to see like a progression of Montreal percentages of different things from like even day one of the regular season. Because I imagine what Montreal was when they were down 3-1 to Toronto. Like their odds to win, you probably would have
Almost
got
like
like
zero at that
zero.
point
Like
to win the cup. Like a
imagine
little bit above zero.
imagine that bet you would have got at that time for Montreal to win the Stanley Cup. And for them to,
Insane.
yeah, that's why. And again, like that, no one knew about that in terms of improbability. If we look at it at that point, it might be the most improbable thing ever to happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But even then, like the Geeks, would they have Toronto at like 75% chance to win that series? They were an underdog against the Jets. Were they? I mean, I know they were, but like, how bad was it? I
Yeah,
don't
they
really
were a
remember.
slight underdog. I think some of the analytics guys on Twitter that were, releasing their models and probabilities, some had it closer to a coin flip. Like
Okay,
some had it like 51-49, like 52-48. Like it was more of a coin flip,
sure,
obviously,
sure.
than the Leafs series, which the Leafs were an insane favorite in that
Yeah,
first
it
round.
was like it's impossible. Essentially,
Even
with the
Vegas was a
I
huge
was gonna
favorite
say,
in the Final Four.
oh, I was gonna say it must have been well, like I said before, even the games in Montreal was a plus. Even when Montreal, I think when Montreal went up 2-1, it was a coin flip at that point, or even at that point, Vegas was like 52%
Yeah,
to win.
Vegas
Like,
was still the favorite to win that series, even being down 2-1.
yeah, so even
And
3-2, I'd like to see it like what it was at. Like, it must have been even close to a coin flip because they were favored in Game 6 and would have been a heavy favorite in Game 7 had it gone back home. But I'll stamp it. Like, I'll stamp it because even too, I think if we look back at those teams, okay, we say the Ducks, that team had like Korea and Solani, right? Like they had Jaguar, and like I think Jaguar is kind of like, and we went through an era of like really good goalies and really good goalies and a lot of big names. And Jaguar has always been kind of underrated to me. Like he had a good long career, like put up some good numbers, and he won a Conn Smythe as a loser, and that hasn't happened very many times. So, and like those other teams, like the Flames had like a Ginla and guys. That Oilers team, like they added Pekka, Pronger. They had goaltending that year. I mean, Montreal's goaltending now, but like they're just piling on. Like I think with Montreal, and did they not lose? Now my wheels are turning to prove the point that they may be the most improbable team to be in the final. Did they not lose like 5 in a row going into the playoffs?
the Habs Lepore were, I believe, their last 22 games were 8-13-1.
There you go. I think they lost like their last 5 going into the play. Now that may have been a thing where like they were locked in and they didn't care.
They had one of the worst records. It was them, and that's what's so funny is that them and the Winnipeg Jets were like two of the worst 5 teams like heading into like in the entire league.
Yeah, remember
like the Jets had legit the worst record in the NHL the last like 12 games of the season. And then you go back the last, like I said, 23 games. Montreal won 8 of their final 23 games and had like a minus 27 goal differential.
Yeah, I know we were sitting here at the end saying like we hope Winnipeg falls to 4 because how bad and checked out they looked. Like they just horrible all around. But yeah, I'll stamp it. I will call the 2021 Montreal Canadiens the most unlikely Stanley Cup finalists in recent history. There you go. Bruno, agree or disagree?
Lepore, I completely agree because
Nice.
I have gone through the list, and the best comparison that I have in terms of looking at what this team was in the regular season and what they were able to do in the playoffs was the 2010 Habs, who didn't get to the Stanley Cup final, who lost in the conference final. So that was the 2010 Habs, who were the 8th seed. They beat Washington in round 1. Then they beat Pittsburgh in round 2. And that's the closest comparison that I have. Because like I said, this 2021 Habs team, okay, minus 9 goal differential in the regular season, 18th best record, 18th in goals against per game, 17th in offense, and the 23rd ranked penalty kill. So everyone wants to talk about how great their penalty kill is now, which obviously, like I said, is the best penalty kill in the history of the NHL playoffs. And everyone wants to talk about how great they've been defensively. Well, in the regular season, they were 18th in goals against per game. They were not good defensively in the regular season. So I went through the list and I looked at all these numbers, and the closest comparison I got was that 2010 Habs team. They had a minus 6 goal differential in the regular season. They had the 19th best record in the NHL. So obviously very close to this year's Habs, who were 18th best. They were 11th in goals against per game, 26th in goals for per game, and they had the 12th ranked penalty kill. So of all the teams that I looked at, that includes the 03 Ducks, 04 Flames, 06 Oilers, even the 2012 Kings, who you brought up, the 2017 Senators, who didn't get to the Stanley Cup final. They lost in the conference final. And then the 2020 Dallas Stars, which was also a pretty improbable run to the Cup final. So, yeah, I have this Habs team number one. And especially like you mentioned, Lepore, when you go through those first 4 playoff games against the Leafs, they scored 4 goals in the first 4 games against the Leafs. They were outscored 12-4 when they were down 3-1. Who in their right mind at that point thought that Montreal Canadiens team was going to find it within them to get to the Stanley Cup final? So
yeah, betting on the Habs is like Bitcoin right now.
It's unbelievable. I have it number one on my list as the most improbable run in the Stanley Cup playoffs that we've ever seen. And now listen, I haven't gone back into the 60s and 70s and even some of the teams in the 80s, but just in recent memory, I mean, looking at some of the playoff runs that we've seen and, especially some of those runs involving Canadian teams, man, this is number one. This is crazy. And you know what? Sometimes
it's amazing.
Sometimes
it's a weird year, man. We're in a weird world right now. Why not? Let's do it. Let's have something bananas happen.
Sometimes crazy shit happens and you get hot and things come together at the perfect time and you get the 2021 Montreal Canadiens. So congrats to you, Montreal, on this unbelievable run.
It's funny because after I said that Korea, like the Ducks had Korean Solani, I was like, wait a second. In 03, I think Solani may have been gone by then. So I just quickly checked. And yeah, Solani had moved on to San Jose. So he was not part of that team. But I got reminded that was Mike Babcock's team.
It was.
That was the team that kind of put Babcock on the map and like, oh, this coach that brought the Ducks to the Stanley Cup final.
Up-and-coming coaches.
Yeah, he went to Detroit. That's it, man. So we were able to make something about the Leafs today, sort of.
We always fit them in somehow.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Always find a way.